This religious group is no longer just a secluded sect focused solely on rituals. It has become an intriguing case combining strict religious interpretations with certain legal issues that have attracted international attention. Founded in the late 1980s, it relies on a precise application of specific religious laws, creating clear boundaries between religious practices and group management. The sect lives isolated from the outside society, with some practices that have sparked wide debate, such as organizing early marriages and following unusual dietary and ritual customs. The story spans several countries and continents, raising questions about freedom of religious beliefs and human rights in the modern era. In this video, we will review the history of this sect, discuss its various practices, its members' continuous relocation, and the legal and social issues associated with it that have drawn the attention of authorities and the media. Stay with us until the end to learn the full picture of this group, and don't forget to support us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel for the latest updates. The story of the Lev Tahor sect began in 1988, founded by Rabbi Shlomo Helbranz, who grew up in a secular environment before choosing a path of strict religious devotion. He received his rabbinical education in Jerusalem, where he developed a rigid religious vision based on a unique and extreme interpretation of the Torah. Through this interpretation, he sought to achieve spiritual purity and a distinct form of social isolation. This strict ideology became the foundation for establishing the Lev Tahor sect as a Haredi community that rejects compromise or integration with the outside world and imposes strict religious rules on its followers. During its early years in Israel, Rabbi Helbranz and his followers faced increasing legal and social pressure. One of the most notable incidents was an accusation in the early 1990s involving the kidnapping of a child while he was in the United States. This case led to his imprisonment there for 2 years. After serving his sentence, he was deported back to Israel, where legal scrutiny and pressure against him intensified. As the investigations and challenges continued to grow, Helbranz began searching for a new refuge where he and his followers could continue practicing their strict beliefs away from government monitoring and legal restrictions. His goal was to create a community that would remain completely devoted to his interpretation of religious law while maintaining distance from outside influence. These early struggles played a crucial role in shaping the identity and direction of Lev Tahor, reinforcing its commitment to isolation and strict adherence to its religious principles. In this context, Rabbi Shlomo Helbranz and his followers began a long journey of movement and flight, as settling in one place became nearly impossible due to ongoing legal and social pressures. Seeking a safer environment where they could practice their beliefs freely, the group moved to Canada and established a closed community in the town of Saint-Agathe-des-Monts in Quebec. They believed that Canada would provide a greater degree of freedom to live according to their strict religious practices. However, the pressures did not cease. Allegations related to the mistreatment of children continued to follow the group, leading to constant monitoring and legal scrutiny by local authorities. As these pressures intensified, the sect began searching for other places of refuge in Central America. They relocated to Guatemala, hoping to build a new community there. Yet the authorities did not welcome their presence, and police raids were carried out following reports of child abuse within the group. Faced with growing investigations, the sect once again moved, this time to Mexico, where they settled in the remote jungles of Chiapas. Nevertheless, their stay there also became troubled, as authorities launched investigations into serious accusations, including human trafficking and sexual abuse. The group's constant migration was not limited to the Americas. Their movements eventually extended to Eastern Europe as well. During this period, members of the sect traveled through several countries, including Romania, Turkey, Albania, and Moldova, searching for locations where they could remain away from government scrutiny and external oversight. Finally, in what appeared to be a desperate attempt to change direction and find a new refuge, members of the sect tried to cross the border from the Kurdistan region of Iraq into Iran. However, Local authorities intercepted them and ultimately returned the group members to Turkey and Romania. The Lev Tahor sect follows an extremely strict interpretation of Jewish religious law, widely regarded as one of the most radical interpretations within the Haredi Jewish community. The group does not simply practice strict religious observance. Rather, it enforces a rigid system of rules and regulations that govern nearly every aspect of its members' daily lives. These rules emphasize deep social isolation, severe austerity, and absolute obedience to the sect's religious leadership. Members are expected to follow the guidance of the leadership without question, creating a tightly controlled and insular community in which religious authority plays a central role in decision-making. One of the most controversial aspects of Lev Tahor's internal structure is the system of marriage practiced within the community. Marriages are typically arranged and carefully managed by the group's leadership. According to various reports, girls may sometimes be encouraged or pressured into marrying at very young ages. Because the sect operates largely as a closed society that limits interaction with the outside world, members, especially young girls, often have little opportunity to refuse these arrangements or seek assistance from external institutions. Critics argue that such conditions can leave women and children particularly vulnerable to strict social control by the community's leadership, who justify these practices through their own interpretations of religious tradition. In many countries, these practices conflict with civil law and have been a major factor behind legal investigations and government actions directed at the group. Dress and appearance are also subject to strict regulation. Women and girls are required to wear clothing that covers their entire bodies, usually consisting of long black garments. Observers often note that the clothing resembles the Islamic niqab because of the high level of coverage it provides. Girls are expected to begin wearing this style of dress from a very young age, sometimes around 3 years old. Additionally, reports indicate that children's heads may be shaved regularly, while adult men are required to maintain long beards and mustaches that are not cut or trimmed throughout their lives. These appearance rules function not only as religious expressions, but also as visible symbols of belonging and conformity within the group. Technological restrictions further reinforce the sect's isolation. Members are generally forbidden from using smartphones, watching television, or accessing the internet. By limiting exposure to modern technology and outside sources of information, the leadership is able to maintain a controlled environment in which members rely primarily on internal teachings and authority figures for guidance. Religious rituals within Lev Tahor are also characterized by intense seriousness and discipline. Prayer sessions can last for many hours and often involve slow and extended recitation of religious texts. Participants may repeat prayers for long periods in a deliberate and emphatic manner. These rituals are meant to strengthen spiritual devotion, but they also reinforce communal identity and commitment to the sect's strict religious framework. The group's dietary practices are equally strict. While many Jewish communities observe kosher dietary laws, Lev Tahor follows particularly rigid interpretations of these rules. Reports indicate that the sect avoids certain foods, including chicken and eggs, based on its belief that these foods no longer meet what it considers natural or acceptable standards. Meat consumption is typically limited to animals slaughtered under close supervision by religious authorities within the sect. Fruits and vegetables may be washed for long periods to ensure that they are completely free of insects or impurities, and some foods, such as rice, may be avoided due to concerns that tiny insects might be present. On the political and ideological level, Lev Tahor strongly rejects Zionism and denies the legitimacy of the State of Israel, arguing that the creation of the state contradicts what the sect considers the true teachings of the Torah. This position is rejected by the vast majority of mainstream Jewish communities around the world. The group's political stance has led to several controversial actions internationally, including attempts to seek political asylum in Iran and expressions of support for Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. These positions have drawn significant international attention and criticism, further intensifying tensions between the sect and governments in Israel and various Western countries. For several years, the Lev Tahor sect has been in the public eye due to serious concerns regarding the treatment of children and women within its closed community. These concerns were investigated through legal and security cases in multiple countries, highlighting complex issues involving family arrangements, community rules, and the welfare of minors. In December 2024, authorities in Guatemala carried out a large-scale inspection of one of the residential complexes associated with the group. During the operation, approximately 160 children were found living in very poor conditions, with limited access to basic necessities and essential care. Many children appeared to be affected by long-term neglect, which had implications for both their physical and psychological development. Authorities immediately separated the children from adult members and transferred them to specialized care centers to ensure their safety and provide appropriate support. This operation marked a significant moment in the legal scrutiny of the group and opened the door for further investigations related to the welfare and protection of minors. Earlier, in 2018, a high-profile legal case in the United States involved the group's leadership regarding two children taken from New York City. One of the children, a minor girl, had been involved in an early marriage arrangement within the group. The case attracted international attention and prompted extensive searches, legal interventions, and diplomatic involvement. The children were eventually returned to their family, and several leaders of the group, including the son of the founder, faced formal charges. 4 of them received prison sentences as part of the legal outcome. Former members of the sect have provided detailed accounts describing strict and highly controlled practices within the community. These testimonies include descriptions of intensive disciplinary methods, enforced isolation from outside society, and measures intended to influence behavior and ensure compliance with community rules. Reports also indicate that children sometimes had limited access to medical care, even in situations of urgent need. Overall, documented reports about Lev Tahor illustrate a pattern of strict control, highly regulated behavior, and practices that may limit individual freedoms, particularly for children. Authorities in multiple countries have increasingly recognized these concerns, leading to coordinated legal actions, closer monitoring, and international attention. The combination of enforced obedience, structured discipline, behavioral oversight, and restricted access to essential needs demonstrates the challenges faced by members and underscores the importance of protection, monitoring, and legal oversight. This chapter highlights the complex interaction between religious practice, community governance, and individual rights, emphasizing the need for vigilance and intervention to ensure the welfare of vulnerable individuals. It also illustrates the challenges that authorities face when balancing respect for religious freedom with the responsibility to protect the rights and well-being of children and other vulnerable members of tightly knit communities. Since its founding in 1988, the Lev Tahor sect has been led by Rabbi Shlomo Helbranz, whom followers considered the supreme spiritual authority and the sole interpreter of divine will. His leadership was rooted in what can be described as religious charisma, giving him exclusive control over interpreting sacred texts and defining rules that governed every aspect of members' lives. There was no space for discussion or consultation. All power was centralized in his hands, resulting in an authoritarian internal governance system. Members were prohibited from participating in decision-making or expressing opinions. Absolute obedience and complete submission to the rabbi's authority prevailed, with Helbranz regarded as the ultimate spiritual guide. This centralized control isolated the sect from the outside world, transforming leadership into an institution that issued commands without question, regulating both personal behavior and broader organizational rules. After Rabbi Shlomo Helbranz's death in 2017, which occurred during a drowning accident while performing a religious ritual in a Mexican river, leadership passed to his son, Nachman Helbranz. Nachman not only continued his father's approach, but intensified it, imposing additional restrictions on daily life, including strict rules about diet and clothing. These measures deepened the sect's internal isolation and increased the leadership's control over members' lives. Under Nachman, the leadership system retained the same centralization as before. reinforced by religious legitimacy that left him as the unquestioned authority. Any form of dissent or criticism was strictly suppressed, earning the sect a reputation as a closed society governed by an absolute leader intolerant of opposition. Authority within Lev Tahor became both absolute and hereditary, concentrating power within the family and ensuring succession remained strictly controlled. The combination of religious authority, strict rules, and personal control over members' lives enabled the leadership to maintain dominance while preventing independent thought or opposition. By centralizing power in one figure, the sect created an environment where deviation or disobedience was impossible, reinforcing the perception of Lev Tahor as an insular, authoritarian religious community. In conclusion, Lev Tahor's leadership structure exemplifies an extreme model of centralized, hereditary authority. It relies on religious charisma, rigid enforcement of rules, and suppression of dissent to ensure compliance. This system not only sustains internal cohesion, but also isolates members from external influences, making the leader's decisions absolute and unchallengeable. The Lev Tahor sect currently faces a complex set of legal and social challenges due to intensive judicial scrutiny in the countries where it operates. Its membership is estimated between 200 and 350 individuals, primarily located in Mexico, Guatemala, the United States, and Canada, with smaller groups in some Eastern European nations. Investigations against the sect's leaders and senior members continue, with the group facing serious charges, including human trafficking, sexual assault, and kidnapping. These allegations reveal the scale of the abuses believed to occur within this closed community. Legal campaigns aim not only to curb the sect's activities, but also to protect victims, who are often children and women. A major development occurred when intelligence agencies, notably Israel's Mossad, participated in raids in Mexico. Several sect members were arrested, facing charges that could lead to prison sentences of up to 20 years. These joint operations between Mexican and Israeli authorities underscore the severity of the case and the commitment of the involved nations to halt the abuses associated with the group. Despite these pressures, Lev Tahor members continue to live under extreme social isolation, enveloped by a network of strict internal and external surveillance. International monitoring by security and human rights organizations is ongoing. Attempts to dismantle the group have repeatedly faced obstacles due to its high secrecy, making intervention a continuous challenge. The sect has attracted widespread media attention. Israeli media have dubbed it the Jewish Taliban because of its extreme and harsh practices, comparable to the Taliban's methods in Afghanistan. Testimonies from former members describe systematic physical and psychological abuse, along with a strict internal surveillance system that monitors members and punishes those who dissent. Human rights advocates and authorities emphasize that the continued activity of Lev Tahor poses a genuine threat to children and women. They call for urgent protective measures for victims and strong legal action to deter violations. The abuses, often conducted under the guise of religious authority, highlight the need for coordinated international and national intervention. In summary, Lev Tahor illustrates the ongoing tension between religious freedom and human rights protection. While legal and social pressures continue to challenge the sect, its secrecy and strict control over members remain significant obstacles. Effective action requires continuous monitoring, coordinated legal measures, and strong safeguards to prevent further harm and ensure that vulnerable individuals are protected. In conclusion, between the cloak of religion and the snare of oppression, the Lev Tahor sect has become a living nightmare, moving across continents to evade justice. The hidden truths have been revealed, and the masks of false purity have fallen, exposing a group that reduced religion to extremist rituals and absolute authoritarianism. And with that, we reach the end of today's video. Don't miss the chance to stay updated with all new content by subscribing to the channel and activating the notification bell so you receive everything as soon as it's released.